Hey there, welcome back to Reddit Dating, the best channel for Reddit cheating stories. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell notification for more stories like these. Now, let's get into the video. Cheating fiancé raises the bar on cheating. A few weeks ago, it came to light that my now wife had cheated on me some years before. Soon after getting engaged, it happened while we were together on a weekend getaway with some of our closest friends. The person with whom she had an affair was someone I would have considered to be a friend at the time of their affair. Even though he wasn't as close to us as the other 8-9 people who were with us at the time, I would have considered him a friend on the surface of things. Even better, he just so happens to be the brother of one of my wife's closest friends, who happened to be in town this weekend as well. We went abroad with a group of our best friends, who were all in their late 20s at the time. This was something we did on a very regular basis. Drinking and hanging out had occupied the most of our time during the day and early evening. Afterwards, a friend and I realized we needed to go buy more supplies a couple of hours after. We had our barbecue dinner. I was planning on going to the store with my sober friend as a designated driver. Suddenly, I learned that my fiancé had gone to the store with the individual in issue, just as we were getting ready to depart, seemingly sneaking off, when there was no reason for being secretive, unless I was told he was supposed to be sober, and that it was okay for him to drive to the shop, and she needed cigarettes. She was not a smoker, but she did smoke on occasion when she was intoxicated in those days. When I first heard this, I recall being hit by the most unpleasant feeling of uneasiness I'd ever experienced. In addition to the circumstances, there was a deep intuitive gut feeling that prompted the decision. I've never been the type of person that is particularly insecure, jealous, or controlling in any way, despite the fact that I'm sure things changed on some levels following this. I attempted to contact her to ensure that they had ice in addition to anything else they were planning to pick up. There was no response. I called his phone number, but there was no answer. Other friends attempted to contact them to tell them to pick up bags of ice, but received no response. By then, it was clear that I wasn't the only one who saw a possible problem here. Unease could be seen on the faces of her friends and my friends after multiple unsuccessful attempts to contact each of them were observed. Everyone, I'd guess, slinked away as if they had some kind of reaction to knowing and or watching what was going on in my head. The revelation that I was not the only one connecting the dots in this situation was intolerable. Some of the dots were circumstantial, while others were simply driven by institutional need and were far too significant to ignore. I recall dialing her phone 20-30 more times and pacing around the side of the home where we were staying like a effing freak on the other side of the street. The experience went from being very enjoyable with my best friends to feeling like I was living in a horrific dream with little to go on other than ignored phone calls, the institution, and the looks on a handful of our friends' faces when their calls were ignored as well. She had been gone for more than an hour. The store is only a few minutes away. Again, this occurred years ago. I was recently made painfully aware that she did indeed commit adultery on that particular night. Her confirmation came in the form of her stating as much while being mum on the specifics and stumbling over the reasoning for why those specifics are foggy. While that indicates a lot about her character, or lack thereof, it seems fair to conclude that my accepting it and refusing to walk away that night, I most likely just strengthened her commitment to dishonesty. When she returned, I confronted her. He had conveniently dropped her off and left, so that he would not have to face me. The rest of us after what they had just done. After failing to achieve any sort of communication that night, I proceeded to retreat inside my thoughts and consume massive quantities of booze and THC in an attempt to alleviate the nightmare feeling I had been experiencing. My most vivid memory of awakening the next morning was seeing her lying next to me and understanding that it wasn't a bad dream after all. Not to mention that if my suspicions are correct, this woman is the world's most sociopathic person ever, having done what I believe her to do and then lying in the same bed as me that very night. I know that even though I forced myself into denial, deep down I always knew something horrible had happened, but I turned it off in my head, perhaps as a weak defense mechanism to protect myself. Even though we'd been together for 8 years, 6 of them spent together in a shared home and had recently become engaged, she slept next to me in bed hours later. I couldn't even begin to comprehend the possibility that she was capable of such an unfathomable act of defiance. This is why I chose to convince myself that the reason everything appeared to be so terribly incomprehensible and up was because it was all in my head. In the course of time, I was able to convince myself that I had remembered an exaggerated version of events for whatever reason. However, in the immediate weeks after this, I persisted contacting her about it, and she eventually gave up. I've been told I'm incorrect and that I'm insane for even thinking about it. The narrative continued from the moment she returned from betraying me so shamelessly until it rose to the surface a few days ago, at which point I was told I was wrong for making such claims. She even brought it up when we were out with her friend, his sister, in the context of, "Can you believe he thinks I would actually do something like that? Come on." In the context of, "Can you believe he thinks I would actually do something like that? Come on." The fact that he used someone, his sister, as a pawn in order to conceal her conduct from me and convince me that I was insane is something I will never forget. She kept it a secret from her friend until I discovered it for definite, and if I were this buddy, she would be dead to me. His behavior changed dramatically after that, and I told myself that it was because he had learned of my suspicions and, believing himself to be innocent, didn't want to get involved. When he made statements to his buddies about how he was afraid of me, I should have recognized it for what it was. I'm curious as to why. It's important to note that this individual was conceited and a well-known womanizing narcissist. Even boasted about using prostitutes and having a highly expensive coke habit, according to the report. Even though I was there for it, it seems like a fiction when I write it down. This dirtbag bragged to all of the guys when we were busting his balls hours before that he is in fact such a legit that he is likely to be littered with STD and / or HIV from all of the unprotected he had. While sharing this will undoubtedly make me look even more unfathomably for not running as far away from her as I possibly could that night, the real kicker is this. Because we had humorously shared his comment with my fiancé and his sister that very same day, how is it that she was fully aware of what he had said yet chose to cheat on me with him? The specifics of how far it went are still up in the air. Although she and another person with whom he recounted the tale have informed me that there was no sexual assault, it is safe to say that I am not willing to accept anything short of them having engaged in the most filthy and despicable types of unprotected sexual assault. Given her ability to perform her duties, it would be ridiculous to suppose she was incapable of performing them all. This piece of human trash is one of those cliché D-bags that epitomizes the caricature of an elitist misogynist who believes that his wealth elevates him above all others in his immediate environment, which is not true. His funders are rather immaterial in this context because I did and continue to do well for myself. Since I've been forced to confront this, I've been unable to comprehend how someone could commit such a heinous crime. Just a few days after saying yes, they proposed to their fiancé. Have you and your partner been together for 7 years? Furthermore, will you be able to proceed with your life in a marriage while maintaining this secret? Not to mention how many other disgusting secrets you may have. For the duration of your relationship with me, it is impossible for me to come up with any evidence to support the notion that she isn't / wasn't or won't be capable of being unfaithful at any point in the past, the present, or the future. My denial gave her the opportunity to sweep it under the rug, and she didn't miss a beat as a result. It makes me feel uncomfortable. As for how to process the fact that a fiancé can cheat while spending a weekend away with close friends in such a careless and reckless manner that everyone there is uncomfortably forced to observe these red flags, I'm not sure how to process it. I'm seeing now that all the things I thought were characteristics of a very strong-willed person were instead just the traits of someone who does whatever they want, whenever they want, with no regard for the impact on others. This was especially true when we were in our 20s and drinking was involved. When she did something I didn't believe was appropriate or even suspected something, I didn't say anything. Just in terms of cheating, she just denied it, and when denying doesn't work owing to witnesses and collateral damage, she simply calls me crazy and buries the memory till in some situations. She may have even convinced herself that she had done nothing wrong. For a long time, I struggled with depression and the effects of gaslighting. It was a difficult time for me. In contrast to the concept of being a victim, I believe in the concept of cause and consequence. I had nothing to do with her acting the way she did. It was all natural and nurture. I also feel that directing our energies on things we cannot influence as people is a mistake. However, I do have some choice over whether or not I allow myself to be exposed to another nightmare like this in the future.